We continue to discuss the linguistic and ethnocultural peculiarities of phraseological units, and the theme of our lecture is challenges of translating phraseological units. Today we are going to discuss the following questions. The first, stages of translating of phraseological units, and the second, selecting techniques of translation of phraseological units. Every nation keeps its own unique culture, traditions, history, and religion. They are an integral part of the national personality and reveal its basic nature. To explore these all things, we must learn their language deeply. It is reflected and influenced in their mother language. The perception and interpretation of the reality surrounding us is different among the representatives of different nations of the world. It manifests itself very clearly in phraseological units of the language as idioms accumulating the knowledge of the people and reflecting culture, history, wisdom, beliefs, customs, and traditions of the certain ethnic group. Phraseological units of the language are one of the categories national mentality is manifested in. Maslova claims that idioms play an important role in the identification of national and cultural features. They are the soul of every national language. They express the spirit of the language and the distinctness of the people. The semantic structure of phraseological units primarily depends on extralinguistic factors, and phraseological units most fully and clearly reflect different areas of life and the living conditions of a certain people, their collective consciousness, culture, century-old experience of the people preserved in the form of verbal utterance. Therefore, phraseological units may be considered as a bank of national wisdom and wits. Phraseology could be portrayed as gallery where representation of the national culture customs are collected. Translating phraseological units is a very difficult task because of their language properties as well as cultural markedness. It has a processual character in which the translator analyzes a given text in order to find the most adequate equivalent of the unit used in the original text. According to the scientists, the process of translating comprises 4 stages. The first of them is the identification of a given phraseological unit in the source language. The second consists in analyzing the phraseological meaning, conducting a source language paraphrase. The next stage is the translation of the phraseological meaning, target language paraphrase. And the last one, the substitution of the phraseological unit in the target language. The first step is not to be underestimated. Many mistakes which occur in the translation of various kinds of texts result from the fact that translators do not realize that a string of lexical items is fossilized and is used in a figurative sense. It is especially important in the case of non-equivalent phraseological units, which translators may not associate with any fixed constructions in their mother tongue. Moreover, many of the units are not included in lexicographic sources, which makes it more difficult for the translator to know them. The analysis of the phraseological meaning consists in expressing in it a non-phraseological way. The translator should analyze the unit contextually, taking into consideration that some units are polysemous. It is in a given context that the unit gains its concrete meaning. The analysis is followed by the next step, which is the translation proper, finding an equivalent. Some units have close equivalents, similar in terms of constituent and structure, while other equivalents employ different imagery. However, in the case of gaps, there are no ready-made equivalents available. Equivalent fixed units do not exist in the target language, which means that the source language units are translated non-phraseologically. They can be translated either by word or a word combination. The final step is the creation of a correspondent text in the target language, a text which has similar qualities on various planes. In order to make a good translation from one language into another, it is important to know both about idioms in two languages and their translation peculiarities. There are four main translation possibilities of transferring the meaning of idioms from English into Russian language. The first, completely preserving the meaning, expressivity and form of the original idiom, partly preserving the meaning, expressivity and form of the original idiom, changing the expressivity of the original idiom, and the fourth is complete eliminating expressivity of the original idiom. To the first translation strategy belong such idioms that have intonational features and can be transferred by using idioms with the same meaning but different form in the target language. For example, the lion's share, львиная доля, to play with fire, играть с огнем. Examples above illustrate translation that preserves the meaning of the original without any changing in it. The second translation strategy preserve expressivity of phraseological units, however with some change of its lexical or grammatical features. Expressive components of the phrase can be changed by other expressive or meaningful component, and some components are just changed by other components in the target language. For example, in broad daylight, средь бела дня, in the dead of night, глубокой ночью. The third translation strategy is applied when it is necessary to exchange the expressivity of the phraseological units. For example, to take somebody for a ride, высмеять. The last translation strategy is a complete elimination of expressivity of the original idiom. It is not the best solution for the translation, as the expressive function is lost in the translation. For example, cross the floor of the house, перейти из одной партии в другую. A skeleton in the cupboard, семейная тайна или неприятность. The analysis has shown that translation of idioms involved three basic translation strategies: translation by description, idiom to idiom translation, which involves both translation by completely or partly preserving the meaning, expressivity and form of the original idiom, and literal translation. Phraseological units pose various problems in the process of translating due to their linguistic properties as well as cultural markedness. A lot of English idioms don't have equivalents in Russian and Kazakh languages. First of all, they are idioms which denote realities which don't exist in our culture. To translate this row of idioms, we need to use descriptive translation. Descriptive translation allows us to convey to the Russian and Kazakh reader a living image of the English idiom. Thank you for attention.